Okay, I'm out here at Bonita Creek. We're out in the middle of the forest and national forest in a community, but it's a tiny community, and but we get a lot of weather here, a lot of weather, and I've learned over the last 10 years what wood rot can do. There's a example right here. We have a post, that comes down from our two-story house, and the post came down, and like up there, the two horizontal posts were cut at a 45-degree angle and brought together, and those posts are attached through that weird connection. I mean, it kind of has to be that way up there, but down here it was the same way. It was coming across, and it was put together with the wood cut like that, and one side started rotting. It was bad. So we had to have a crew come out and make sure that was up. They jacked up a bunch of beams to make sure that stayed up while they replaced this one, and we had it all the way down. So in tackling all the different wood rot, I don't have pictures of what the old steps were, but there was a vertical here that was attached to the side of this. You can see where there's an indentation in the concrete. It was a vertical thing here, and then it had a bunch of lattice work and stuff, and it started rotting down in here because there was something that stopped that caught the wood, and it was rotting at the bases all on both sides because the water would accumulate here and be a problem. This could be a problem here too, except because the steps rotted out completely. So what we did was we cut new steps to replace the old ones. This is the design from the old ones, exactly. The thing is, we painted all the pieces 3 times, 3 coats, even on the ends, on all the ends and everything, before we put it together. So it's pretty sealed. And we caulked it, of course, and I'm going to check it every year, make sure everything's okay, especially at the bases. But this base here, when the house was built, of course they didn't paint any of it, so it was raw wood up against the concrete here. So when it rained, it was bad. So that's as solid as it'll get now. It's good. And I did not. I tore out the railing because it was terrible. It was all wobbly and everything. And I didn't even want to attach it back to this because it was attached to this to keep it from wobbling around. Well, I decided to do something different. I took the old one out and says, all right, I'm going to do something different. So I built this, which it has this is a 6x6, which is really only 5x5. But I put it at an angle. I didn't want it touching the ground. And I put it at an angle, so if water hits it, it's going to roll off. In every side, it's going to roll off. There isn't any horizontal anything except this one spot right here that it'll be able to maybe collect some water. And we'll watch that really careful, and we'll make sure that it's caulked and painted constantly. Every year I'll check that. And if this thing rots off, or this does, it's pretty easy to replace this piece. This one was really hard to put on because, putting it at an angle. But those are 8-inch bolts there, so it's not going anywhere. So it's holding things together pretty well. Another thing that we're going to do, let me show you over here. This is how that other post was put in, and the wood rot got going with it. And that's this right here. See how the 2 pieces came together, and they cut it at this angle. Okay, and then just have these things. They're kind of counting on the weight of the house holding it all together. So I've ordered up a case of stretch caulk. The stretch caulk doesn't shrink, and it actually stretches if these were to widen up a little bit or whatever. And I'm going to pump these gaps with that from both sides and all around here, because what I've found is even they didn't seal any of this around here. You know what this does right here? It lets water come down and sit here. and that's just going to make that rot. And it'll rot in here and in here. So I'm going to caulk all of this. And you can buy the stretch caulk in white or brown or probably other colors too. I'm just going to get brown because well, I don't want white for sure. And I'm going to caulk everything, even along this edge here where the decking has been put in, and they put a little edge out here. Okay, water comes down this crack, and it sits on top of this wood. Like, that's it. It just sits there until it eventually dries out, and that rots the wood. And of course, when they put this in, there was no paint on this. So the top of this doesn't have any paint, no sealer of any kind. So I'm actually going to caulk along here. I don't care. I want it to be, it may look a little weird, but I'd rather it look weird than fall apart or have it cost me, like that post there cost me $1,500 to have a crew of 3 guys and a bunch of jacks and things to replace it. So don't want to do that. Anyway, that's me and my my wood rot story. And if you notice, the paint is all different colors. That we're going to have the whole house painted, because you know that's another thing with wood rot. You got to make sure that that doesn't happen. There's another thing that happened over here. I'll point out. It might help somebody someday. I wasn't aware of it. There was one piece of siding had wood rot right here. I mean, you could push on it and it was like really weak, and you probably could have pulled it off with your fingers. It was really bad. So I had the crew replace this, and when they took it off, even the particle board behind it there was a hole rotted in it. And that was because at one point somebody had painted this and didn't caulk this properly up here, and the water got back behind this wood and puddled here, I guess, because the rest of these are okay. But this was damaged big time. Not enough to have to do anything other than put this back on and then make sure that it's caulked well at the top so the water doesn't make it down. So make sure the tops of windowsills and things are caulked really well with good caulk. Don't buy the cheap stuff. The cheap stuff's going to cost you a lot of money in the long run, so you don't want to do that. So see, we've got a crack up there. I would make sure that was caulked in and filled in. Just anything that water can get to. It's like, no. Of course, we're in Arizona. We don't get that much water.